Today on Unheard People, the black family in crisis. It's not new. It's been heard before. It's certainly been said before. But what is the help, the hope, the opportunity for a challenge that's been around for many years? Today we talk to Mr. Johnny Wyatt and Mrs. Bonetta Wyatt, his wife, who've raised two children successfully. And now they're both in semi-retirement. They are Unheard People for today. We'll be right back. Unheard People with Reverend Joseph Reed is supported by Johnson Research and Development and the Lonnie G. Johnson family of companies, and by the Johnson Robotic Labs, and by listeners like you. Welcome to Unheard People, Mr. Wyatt and Mrs. Wyatt. As you know, this whole series is going to be about the black family. A lot of people talk about the black family, and particularly we as black people talk about the black family, but we don't really say what that means. And in many cases, it's very different from what it was even 20 years ago, 10 years ago, when we said black family. There was the extended family. I think at some point we're going to talk about your book, Mr. Wyatt, that really talks about the role your mother played and your family played. But this whole series is going to be information, hopefully informative to our listeners. American politicians are now eager to kind of disown a failed criminal justice system that's left the United States with the largest incarcerated population in the world, and about 70% of those that are locked up are people of color, many of them African Americans. A lot of people have failed to reckon with history, and Talis Smiley was talking about that most recently on Fox News. He also was talking about the state. He called it the dissolution of the black family. How important some of the principles that you have applied in your life to the family, how important are some of the principles? What can you say to our listeners? You're a father and mother of two children and in retirement or semi-retirement. In looking at your life as parents, as black parents, as parents that were raised in a relatively small community, what did y'all do different? How is it that here you are and with all the challenges that black families face, but you're relatively calm about it? Mr. Wyatt, Ms. Wyatt?
First of all, let me just say that, as we were flattered to be asked, to really talk about this, because it's something that's, very near and dear to our hearts. And I guess first I need to make a disclaimer here that we don't profess to be experts at anything. Okay. We know what worked for us. And as we went along, we just kind of figured it out as we went along. But let me say this. I think as we talked about, listening to your introduction, and we talk about how the family has evolved and that kind of thing. I think that children do what they see you do. And if they see you trying to walk a straight path and trying to do well and trying to do good, and you're encouraging them to do well and study and go to school and expose them to as much stuff as you can, in order for them to make, intelligent decisions about what they want to do with the rest of their life. I think they do what they see you do.
That sounds pretty easy. Is it as easy as that?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
That's how easy it is to do what you did. I mean, are you saying that you were that perfect as a father?
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that I did exactly, I tried to model my actions after my parents. Okay.
Well, so did I. Yeah, we both did.
So what was it about your upbringing that led you to want to be like your parents? And why do kids not want to be like their parents now?
Well, what we had is, my grandfather told me years and years ago, that when you get married, you want to marry somebody just like your mother and your grandmother.
True.
True, absolutely. Because, the longer we're together, we've been together over almost 40 years, I guess. The longer we're together, the more qualities I see, the more of my mother's qualities and my grandmother's qualities I see in the person that I married.
Is that true, Vanessa?
I don't know. I will agree to a certain extent because his mother, I know his mother. I don't know his grandmother, but and I guess I did know one of your grandmothers, really. Mm-hmm. And we all sort of are kindred.
Knew each other.
No, we didn't know each other before. No, we are from totally separate parts of the state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from
state of Alabama.
Mm-hmm, from the state of Alabama. I'm from the south of Alabama. He's from the north
mm-hmm.
part. And we met up in the middle
mm-hmm.
in high school, in a college. So I guess I am, to a certain extent, a lot like his mom. We have a lot of the same beliefs, and we get along great. And so, yeah.
All the time?
Yeah. We have never, I can honestly say, she, you've heard the term stays in her lane.
Mm-hmm.
And I stay in my lane, and we respect each other, and we can tell each other what we think,
mm-hmm.
and that's fine too. So
mm-hmm.
it works out very well for the both of us.
Oh, so these principles, what I use saying, Mr. Wyatt, is, and might be, this is as good as time as any to plug your book. You did write a book, and what is that book called?
The title of the book is Take a Walk with Me. It's actually the Nellie Wyatt story. Nellie Wyatt's my mother.
Okay.
And she was fortunate enough to live with my great-grandfather back in the 30s. She was born in 1928. And back in the 30s, she lived, until she was 12 years old, she lived with my great-grandfather. And the book is about her life and what she experienced, growing up as a child, during the Depression and doing Jim Crow and everything
mm-hmm.
else. And it's
mm-hmm.
just, it's a story of what she was exposed to and what she had to deal with growing
mm-hmm.
up,
mm-hmm.
and what our family had to deal with growing up, and how it evolved out of that. And when she got married, she married a guy that was John Wyatt, who was ambitious and energetic, and they got together and they bought property together, and the family stayed together. They were married for over 60 years. He died back in 2010.
And that's 100 years. That's 40 years for you and Vanetta,
mm-hmm.
60 years for your parents. That's about 100 years. I don't hear marriages and relationships lasting like that. Certainly, the life of our young people, with divorce rates soaring. Between young people. They get married now, and I think the divorce rate is closing in on 6% for the general population, but you'll be surprised to know it's closing in on 70% for African Americans.
Wow.
What is going on? I mean,
mm-hmm.
this is certainly not our parents' marriage or our grandparents' marriage.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference? What is the help you can provide to the Black family today that can help them beyond reflecting on the past and living on the principles of the past?
One of the things I always think about when I think about when how long we've been together and why we've stayed together, why we get along as well as we do. When we first got married, we had a serious discussion in which we agreed that if we ever had problems in our marriage, we would not take it outside of our marriage. I wouldn't go back to my mom, in other words, and dad and complain about him to them and vice versa.
Did that work?
It's worked it's worked. I don't guess he's complained too much about me to his mom and, and dad,
uh-huh.
but I think that worked a lot. And we were committed to stay together. And I always told my girlfriends I had this thing in my heart that when I met him and when we got together, decided to be married, I knew what I knew that he was the one for me. And obviously he felt the same way. We were able to, that's not to say we haven't had bumps.
What are
Had
the
some
bumps?
bumps.
Tell us about those bumps, because I think that what we're getting at is it's not working for most of our young people.
Well,
And we know that in an age of incarceration, that just aggravates the situation. If you have a person who can't earn a living, person who's in prison or been to prison, and then they come back to the community, the relationship is fractured as it is. And it's tough enough, even if you don't wind up incarcerated. But what we're talking about now is 7 out of 10 of our black men who experience some form of incarceration prior to even making a life or getting married at all. So what do you say to them? I mean, it sounds good, the two of you. And what did you say to your children that has led them to not get in trouble, Mr. Wyatt? I mean, and obviously lead happy and productive lives.
Well, we start, my philosophy was that, as I said, that, children do what they see you do. As they were growing up and starting to school and just starting to, to move outside of the house, we went with them. When I say went with them,
we were involved in everything.
In everything they had to do, everything they did.
Did they allow you to be involved?
Well, they didn't have a choice.
Well, now that brings us to the attitude of kids today.
Let me say this. Okay, when I say involved in what they were doing, I was a PTA president at 3 of the 5 schools here in Fairfield. When our kids were at the elementary school, I was PTA president. When they moved, and I was there until they left. When they moved to middle school, I became the PTA president.
Did they resent that?
Well,
probably.
In some respects, probably, but in others, when kids would tell them, "Oh, I know Mr. Wyatt," but I like your dad or I like your mom or whatever, they would play it off. But at the same time, deep down inside, I think they had to feel good about it, because when they got in the band, we traveled with the band, and we made sure that the program had the assets and stuff that it needed to be successful and things like that. So
you were involved in your children's life all the way through.
All the way.
And involved at their school.
At their school.
And now, when you look at PTA, and that's one of the criticisms that a lot of African-American teachers have of a lot of the parents of today, they're just nowhere to be found. A lot of, particularly the income-challenged communities or income-challenged families, they're parents, single moms with children. And by the way, that's what Monahan was saying was going to be the result for the Negro family. His argument was that because the black male is not in the home, it has resulted in just a plethora of single-parent households, and the burden is fallen on the female to carry the heavy load of almost everything. What would you say to a?
Well, I had some of that in our early years when the kids were younger. Johnny worked for a hotel, and he had to work a lot of nights, and I was doing the day shift, and which meant that I had to pick the kids up, and I had to do a lot of that night work, the homeworks, the baths, the feeding, the getting them into bed, and all of that stuff for a lot of the time.
Before you went to work?
At night.
Before you started a job?
No, I was working.
And doing it?
I was working and doing it too. So I, had some of that single mom syndrome too, I think, because I had to deal with that.
I think most families do, whether there are 2 parents there or not. The only thing is that the work has to be, the work of raising the children has to be divided among 2 people rather than have that burden placed solely on one. I think that,
and 2, also, there's other people involved in raising your kids too that you allow. There's the church community, there's the school community, and then there's home community.
Or extended family members.
And then, and then extended family members, right? And then the neighbors. But in all of that, the parent has to maintain control of who their children are dealing with on a daily basis. Listen.
One of the programs that, that we got really engaged with, and in fact, I'm still engaged with that program, is the band. It's Fairfield High School's band. My wife says we'd have some money if it wasn't for that band. When our kids got there, and we got engaged with it. One of the things I have a tendency to do is to take a look at what other systems or school systems are doing and what other people are doing. There aren't that many new things under the sun. They're just our kids a lot of times haven't been exposed to all of these things. So one of the things we put up on high up on the agenda was travel. Okay, we put those kids. We went out and raised money and figured out and got other parents and we got businesses and everybody else to. Your
kids or just kids in general?
Kids in general. That band, that band could have had 200 kids but we only took 100 because 125 kids, 16 chaperones, and the band staff fit on 3 charter buses. And we took them to every HBCU.
At historically black college and university.
Right. On this side of
They had a good time?
Had a great time. On this side of Mississippi. Now, we took them all to, Florida, we travel all the time. Okay. And what it did was when the kids that have the trip that made the most impact on me was when we went up to Virginia Beach, up to Hampton University. And it was in the dead of winter. And the kids kept saying, Mr. White, can we go see the ocean? I said, yeah, it's cold out there. We can't go out there now. He said, well, can we just go see? We pulled up to Virginia, down to the boardwalk down at Virginia Beach, and the kids wanted to get off. I said, it was cold. I said, go ahead. But they got off and went out to the beach. And some of them, I actually saw some kids take that water and taste it to see if it was salty. What I realized right then was that most of those kids had never seen the ocean.
So that was an experience. Now that's the help. Mm-hmm. Here's a mother listening to you, and she's saying, that sounds great, what Mr. and Mrs. Wyatt is saying, but my son or my daughter is out there. Is there hope?
There is hope. There is absolutely hope. Okay,
and what is it based on?
The other piece of that help that we hadn't gotten to is that you have to our churches have got to step into that gap. Okay, now you as a pastor understand that probably a lot better than we do and than most people.
But the churches are graying. The churches are getting older. Mm-hmm. The members are getting older. A lot of the young people have grown and gone, and so and the church itself is not playing the role that it used to play.
But there are some churches that are growing and they're vibrant and they're reaching kids, and you have to ask. And I think the thing that the churches you're talking about, the older graying churches, have got to ask themselves why. If a church is, is it, kids are visual and they deal with stuff from an emotional standpoint. And if the music is what reaches them, the music is what reaches them. You have to meet kids where they are. You can't make them come to your side, and you certainly can't pull your pants down and get over on their side.
You can't walk around 65 years old, pants on the ground. Let's shift for a little bit and talk about y'all's religious belief or your spiritual foundation. Mm-hmm. What role did that actually play in those times when you actually may have lost hope? And what opportunity exists even today for you to grow your spirituality or you to grow your religion, your faith is what I'm talking about. And how important is that to the black family? I mean, historically, that has seemed to have been one of the foundations, but it seems to not necessarily be in an age of prosperity ministry and all kinds of other religious denominational persuasions. Used to be just the Baptist church or the church underneath the tree. Now it's expanded, non-denominational. There are issues of same sex. All kinds of things are going on now that our young people, technology, handheld devices, telephones, texting, all kinds of things that are distractions, it seems, for our young people that many of us perhaps did not have. How do you cope with that?
It's not easy. It's not easy. Our kids are currently at the point, they're in their 30s. And they are currently at the point.
This is your biological children.
Our kids, yeah. Where they are, I mean, they have a background, because we took them to church and made sure that they knew how to behave and, tried to prepare them for life, but taught them they are very well aware of who God is and what God is and how important God is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they are faithful churchgoers.
Okay.
And they're at that point where they're not. For whatever reason, I remember going through a phase where I didn't go for a while, but I came out of that because life gets difficult.
How about your husband? How about Mr. Wyatt?
Well, when the kids were young, I took the kids to church most of the time. He didn't necessarily want to go. And it was funny, we were talking about this earlier, how our son, I took them until one day, I guess he turned, I don't know, that magic age where he thought he did not have to go. So he wanted to bargain and say, I don't have to go to church. I can watch watch it on TV. And I was teasing his dad, and I said he was a bad influence on his
So he wasn't the best influence. That wasn't a good example. Huh?
No. But, years rocked on, and my husband has come to the church, and thank God, I said, I did did lots of knee talking with the Lord and brought him in. And that's the bottom line for me is prayer and belief that God had them at the beginning and God still has them. And when they, and that God is, he's got them now and he's waiting patiently for them to come back. And I trust in God that they will come back eventually. They know who God is and they know where their help is. But sometimes we forget because life is good or we're out there and we're caught up and we can't think about it. So we need a reminder. And that's where the parents and the grandparents and the church and whoever, is a Christian walks up to someone who's in trouble. We have to remind them, don't forget God. God can help you with this. Remember your faith and that kind of thing. So I have faith that they will come back. And so, I trust that.
Now she's throwing me under the bus, I think.
And you and probably most men or a lot of men who didn't go to church or wind up going at the urging of their wife or some significant other.
Well, the thing is that, I said earlier that kids do what they see you do, and I realized that, at some point that if I wanted my children to go to church, and I wanted them, whether they wanted to, back in the day when we were small, if you got up on Sunday, you went to church. It didn't make no much thought about it. Okay,
so you were going. You were going to church. Yes, you were, and you went too, or else.
It didn't even occur to you not
to go. That's right.
Because there were things that your parents could punish you with at that point.
Yes.
They could say, "Well, you can't go here if you."
It's hard to punish these kids. These they take their phone. Of course, that's the biggest punishment.
But you can if they have friends, or
But I think I think about it sometimes when you look and a kid's room's got a TV set, a stereo, and he's got an
iPhone
and stuff. The worst thing you could do is punishment to send him to his room or something.
They got all the tools to do. Well, listen, we have about another minute or so, and I know, Mr. White, you're interested in politics, and I don't know what you want to say about that. Other than, what you may be planning to do. But what is the role of politics in uplifting the Black family?
Well, I guess by virtue of the fact that, that I've been so engaged with the school system here and serving on the school board.
You're in Fairfield.
In Fairfield, and
Alabama.
You have to get engaged.
We have this national audience that's listening all over the country, so they don't know about little Fairfield.
I thought we were just having a conversation about us. But since, when in small towns, all politics are local. So you have to figure out where you can help. And the thing about politicians, both on the national level and on the local level, is that if you're not there to help, then you're hurting somebody. Okay, so if you're not there for the right reasons, you shouldn't go. So we've been kicking it around, and I think I'm considering running for office next year, and but it's something that we'll do and that we'll pray about, and we'll talk it over as a family and decide what we want to do. So,
well, everybody who knows you probably have a good idea when they hear Johnny Wyatt. They're gonna know. Yeah, we know what he's running for, but I'm pleased that we stayed focused on our subject, the Black family. Last words, any final words that you have to share?
I think I don't think all is lost. I don't think that. I think there's still a good opportunity for us as individuals and for the church and for the community at large to save itself. Okay, it's just that we've got to realize that that integration didn't necessarily mean equalization. Okay, and that and if we can ever decide how much is enough, if your car is big enough, the house you live in is big enough, and you've got enough stuff at your house, then you'll be amazed at how much stuff that allows, how much money and how much stuff that leaves for you to share with other people. Okay?
And it frees you up also to do some things that you want to do other than pay bills and work to pay debt.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, if we can ever embrace and start to focus inward just a little bit and not worry about getting to the next big place to live and getting to the next big concert or whatever. If you pull back just a little bit and take a look at what's around you, I think your community can evolve. I think as you start to look inward, you'll start to see that the children, and embrace the children, you'll start to see your community change. And and I think that's extremely important.
Banana?
I was going to say it's about, to me, building self-esteem. I think a lot of the problem is that children have poor self-esteem. And
adults too.
Adults as well, absolutely, yeah. Have poor self-esteem. So we have to build each other up. We have to find ways to encourage and build that self-esteem. Love people, encourage them and not beat them down. Show them ways to take care of themselves, to build a better life for themselves. Expose them to the library. That's something simple. The libraries are free.
The things you see, and children have to understand that the things you see on TV
are not real.
That's a tough one to get across. Well, listen, let me thank both of you for being on Unheard People. This is the inaugural program for Unheard People, and we've just been pleased to have the two of you as our guests. As always, you've now been heard. Thank you for being on the program.
Thank you.
One final comment, Mr. White. Go right ahead.
One final comment. You asked about that book.
Where can they get the book? That's important.
You can get the book on Amazon or on eBay.
Give us the name again and the author.
The author is yours truly. And the name of the book is Take a Walk with Me, okay, the Nellie Wyatt story.
Take a Walk with Me, Nellie
N-A-L-L-I-E.
N-A-L-L-I-E, the Nellie Wyatt, W-Y-A-T-T story. Mm-hmm. Take a Walk with Me, Amazon
or eBay. And, but the thing about that book is this, and I'll say this and I'll hush. I wrote that book for my 13-year-old grandson because it traces our family on my mother's side all the way back to 1867. Okay, so I didn't want him to have to go and dig and try to find out where he came from or who his relatives are. Okay, as many people are doing right now. He can pick up that book and read it and he'll know exactly who they are. I encourage all of us to take, as African Americans, to take a look at, at where we are, write it down, and so that your children will know who they are and that they just didn't fall out of a tree somewhere. Okay.
That's great. We're gonna end on that note. Thank you for being with us. You've been listening to Unheard People with Reverend Joseph Reed, a compelling half hour giving voice to unheard issues and shining a light on the lives of everyday people whose insights could make a difference in our lives. Until next week, I'm Reverend Joseph Reed. Keep the faith.